Welcome back to the Spacemakers podcast for a bonus episode on Wise AI. My name's Daniel Sih, and this podcast is a podcast to help you make space for an intentional, meaningful life. Now, we are living in the age of artificial intelligence, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, AI is powerful, it's intuitive, it's sophisticated, it promises us that we can do things faster, quicker, with more efficiency, and I actually have to agree that there's a lot of truth in that. But at the same time, I'm also experiencing tension and complexity in the way I use AI and in the way my clients use AI, because while we're promised that AI will save us time, life doesn't seem to be slowing down. In fact, the more we use AI, the more people are telling me that they're saving time, and at the same time, they're busier than ever before. Their calendars are full, their life is full, their schedules are jam-packed. So how does that work? How do we save time and yet have a busier life? And that's the conversation we want to talk about today. I'm so excited to have the co-author of my new book with me, Paul Matthews. I'll introduce him in a minute. He's an expert in AI, but we've just co-authored a book which will be released very, very soon. We've been working on it for the last 6 months, and it is so close to being released. It's called Wise AI, Using Powerful Technology in a Deeply Human Way. And we're going to talk about what it means to use AI wisely, to experience the power and sophistication of incredible new tools, and at the same time to do it in a way which is mature, wise, and deeply human, so that we actually experience space in our life and a better quality of life, not simply save time on tasks. So that's what this episode is about. I can't wait to talk about my new book with Paul and to help you learn how to use Wise AI. Okay, Paul Matthews, welcome to the show. I am so grateful that you were able to come into the studio today and have this conversation.
Yeah, look, I got to tell you, it's been a goal of mine for some time, Daniel, to get on the Spacemakers podcast. So I'm living the dream right now.
Well, excellent. Well, it's been a goal of mine for a long time to write a book with you about AI. So I am super excited. And you and I have been, we've been working hard for some months and really brewing on this idea of what is Wise AI for over a year.
I think it's been a great journey as we've been thinking about the technology itself, but also just some of the bigger questions. And we'll get onto the bigger questions behind the tools and the technology later, because I think that's just some of the most important part of using artificial intelligence well.
Absolutely. So look, tell us about yourself. Obviously, my listeners know a bit about me, but tell us about, the great Paul Matthews.
The great Paul Matthews.
And you are, you're a good friend, and I deeply respect and admire your work in the AI space. But tell us about yourself and how you ended up kind of in this field of artificial intelligence and training people around the world.
Well, it's a good question, because the more you know me, the more you realise that it's actually quite weird, this potential sort of future that we've ended up in now, because I'm not really a tech person. I'm a little bit of a Luddite to some degree. I've got an old watch, I've got an old car.
I've got an old watch too.
Man, my fridge does not connect to the internet, all that sort of stuff, right? So I don't get really excited about new technology. What I do get excited about is big impact. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So I'm a third generation teacher. I love teaching. I feel like I was put on the earth to do it.
And you still work as a teacher as well as a consultant and
Absolutely.
A trainer and a speaker. And I mean, I don't know how you do it, but you must be productive.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I love it all. And it's all kind of the same thing. My big life mission is to bless other people through education. So it all sort of falls within that. And I was in the position as a teacher where I was teaching a class, and we're talking nearly unlimited needs in the class. The state of modern education, Daniel, is such that you've got a class and the gaps, just say on one metric, say literacy, the ability to read and write. The gap is bigger than it's ever been. And what does that mean for me as a teacher? I've got more work to make sure that the lesson I'm teaching is applicable to the student who struggles the most and the high flyers. Now, pre-AI, to cater for those people, I'm spending my evenings, my weekends, my holidays, I'm grinding myself down to be able to provide for these people, and I'm still not able to do it that well. And so I was hoping and yearning for a long time that there'd be something that would actually help me have the sort of impact in my class that I wanted. And that's exactly what AI did for me. So like I said, I'm not a big tech guy. Most of the people we deal with in our training don't get excited about technology per se. What we do all get excited about is impact. And it's that impact that helps me help my students learn to read and write more effectively than ever. And we've seen the same sort of impact with the professionals we've been dealing with as well.
Absolutely. And so, just for a bit of context, so now for the last a number of years, you've been on the front foot of AI, particularly in the teaching space. So you write daily social media, you've written numerous ebooks on AI, particularly in the teaching space. You've done a TEDx talk on AI, and I know you train and speak around, the world now, not just Australia, on AI, particularly in teaching, but generally. So that's your background. So it's interesting you don't see yourself as maybe a future tech guy. It's interesting. I speak and write a lot on tech, and I have an enormous amount of tech in my life and my business. But you and I have the same posture. While you see AI as being highly impactful, you also see some potential negative sides if we don't use AI well, which is part of the Wise AI piece. Is that right?
That's exactly right, because we talk about it a lot. It's in your books as well. Technology is never neutral. It's going to carry a certain story within itself. And one of the things that a time-saving technology like artificial intelligence might be quietly whispering in our ear is that we just need to do more, right? So that because you can do more, you should do more, right? You were busy before, you had 8 hours of work and you were grinding away for all 8 hours. Now you can do it so much faster. Well, you should just jam more into that 8 hours. And we're talking more emails, more meetings, more Zoom calls, more compliance, all this sort of stuff. And so that's just part of the story that you and I are pushing back against. And so, no, we can actually use this eye-wateringly powerful technology, but we don't just have to crank up the speed on the busy work treadmill. We can actually push into a more human life.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I like the quote from Tim Challies, who wrote The Next Story. He said that technology wears its benefits on its sleeves, but the drawbacks are hidden deep within. And what he means by that is actually we all know the benefits of a technology like AI. It'll make you fast, it'll speed you up. We get told that every day, but there are negative sides, not just to what it does to maybe our thinking capacity and our organic intelligence, which you name it, we'll talk about that later, but also the busy treadmill, the shaping of what it does to us if we don't pause and think deeply. So our book is very practical. It will teach you how to use AI, but it also teaches you how to think deeply about using it in a human way that actually increases the quality of your life and lets you have space for things like deep work, deep thought, deep rest. We'll talk about that later as well.
You're exactly right. So we're definitely not out there saying don't use artificial intelligence, it'll rot your brain. We're very pro AI. To put our cards on the table up front, we're very pro AI. And we're pro AI, but at the same time recognising the fact that we're not going to get this right by accident.
Yeah, it's almost like we are pro AI, but we're also very sceptical about AI at the same time. It's that paradox, right? We want to use it really well ourselves, and we want to use it wisely with consideration, recognising the drawbacks altogether as one package. And that's really what the book is about. Look, tell me about Sue and Christine. So you started the book with a story about two ladies you met at a conference. And the more you and I spoke and wrestled with who we're writing for and what Wise AI means, the more we came to this idea that this story was the one to lead with and this experience, because I think it frames where people are at, where you and I are at, and why we think this book is important.
Yeah, this was a wild experience. So It was one of my first trips internationally to speak, and my background is in speaking to teachers and educational leaders. Right? That's my butter zone, and I feel like I can just hit that out of the middle of the bat. But I had a big conference hall full of busy professionals. And so there is some overlap between education and the profession that I was dealing with here, but I had some bigger questions about how it would translate. I gave my topic, my speech, and what they did, it was a bit of a mongrels, man, because they put me right before lunch. So I flew halfway across the world, spent 4 days travelling to speak while people they got like a halfway down eyelids waiting for their lasagna. So we're heading out to lunch after I finish my keynote. I feel this little tap on my shoulder and a lady introduces herself to me. Her name's Sue. And I turn around and I go to shake her hand. She's not in a handshaking mood. She's got a sort of furrowed brow. And she just goes, Paul, look, I have to say I disagree. I really don't like artificial intelligence at all. And if I could just press a button and make it all go away, that's exactly what I'd do. And that it stopped me in my tracks, Daniel. And so I tried not to judge too quickly and just press in with a few questions. Turns out that Sue, she was about 65 years old. She grew up in a rural town. The big technological innovation of her childhood was a landline home phone.
Wow.
All right.
That's amazing how far technology has gone. I mean, she must have been very young, but even then, I mean, she didn't have the internet. She certainly didn't have social media. I mean, all these kind of advancements, the mobile phone, none of this had existed, right? No.
So Sue's living from the landline home phone potentially to artificial general intelligence, all right? And in one lifetime, that's more change than anyone has ever experienced. And she was just kind of done with it. She said, I just want to get on with doing my job. And she's had to go through all the changes brought about by that tech you were talking about, laptops and the internet and email. She started with no email, which is crazy because you talk to a lot of professionals. What do they say they do 90% of the time? It's emails, right? And so she's just saying, I just want to get back to my job.
So, I mean, Sue, it sounds like she was maybe a tech skeptic, or at least she'd been burnt by the change, which we can understand and relate to, right?
It's a lot of change in a very short period of time. She can absolutely be forgiven for feeling just a bit frustrated.
Well, I feel that way a lot of the time as well. You know, I mean, if I'm honest, if there was a choice with, let's say, social media and AI not coming out of the toothpaste tube, I'd probably say it'd probably better if we didn't have it. But in some ways, it's here and let's use it well. So there's a skeptic in me as well. So I can empathise with Sue to an extent, right?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And look, let me tell you, the next person I met, Christine, was probably the polar opposite to Sue, right? Okay. So I sat down at the table, had my lunch, and in comes this whirlwind. And she sort of bounces along the bench seat and sits next to me and says, oh, hi, Paul, really loved your talk. Here are the different things I'm doing, and here's sort of the 5 apps that I have and the 10 new workflows that I've done, and my 5-day report I can now do in a day and a half, and it's all amazing. The interesting thing, though, for Christine was she was still working in the evenings. She was still doing emails on her phone, sitting in the car while her sons were playing soccer.
Yeah, that kind of frantic, fast-talking, fast-moving person who is really efficient in getting stuff done, but there's still that lack of space in some ways, right?
That's exactly right. And honestly, it sounded like Christine was yearning for that space. And so you've got these two people who, on the surface, they appear to be polar opposites. Sue is a little bit of a hater. She doesn't quite get around the technology. She's frustrated by it. Christine absolutely loves it. But the more I thought about it, they actually have the same deep impulse within them. What they both want is space. They want space to think and to breathe and to rest and to connect well with other people. Sue is seeing that coming from no technology.
Yeah.
Christine is hoping it will come from the technology, but it's not quite working out.
So they're both frantic. They're both stretched for time. They're both change fatigued in some ways, and they're both trying to have a life where they get to do great work, but it doesn't consume all of their life, right?
Exactly.
So they want the space, and they want the space to be able to plan and to be able to think clearly and just to not feel like they have to rush from one thing to the next. So I think they're basically the same person, even though they're polar opposites with their technology interests. I love that, you know, but at the same time, so you said Sue is avoiding technology because that's how she thinks she'll get the space back. And there's some truth to that because technology has made our lives busier in lots of ways, right?
Yeah, we can learn something from Sue.
Yeah, but at the same time, I love that Christine definitely has it right as well because, well, technology can also give her space back. So where does Wise AI fit within that wide spectrum or that polarity?
Yes, and that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because both Sue and Christine, regardless of their very different dispositions, would benefit richly from wise AI use. And that's a term we settled on when we were thinking about how we use this eye-wateringly powerful technology in a human way. And what we saw, and this was some research that you pointed me towards, a Microsoft Work Trend research, where they were saying 64% of people are just having a hard time getting on with their job.
Yeah, I remember that report. It was like, we're now spending so much of our time in meetings, communicating about work, collaborating about work, and coordinating work with each other, that there's no time to actually do the jobs that we need to do. So people are working from home because they go to the office, it's party time, or they're just in meeting after meeting and interruption after interruption, Slack, Teams, emails. And they just don't get the deep work at least, and the deep planning and the deep thinking done that they need. So there is that very real pain point in the workplace.
Exactly. And you know that. I see that within the education profession as well. And so as we were considering, well, what's the most human, spacious vision we can cast for artificial intelligence? We said, well, look, we've all got this busy work that we're doing. It needs to be done. We can't just not do it. But perhaps that's where artificial intelligence is going to give us a lot of leverage. So what if we could really economise and fast track and expedite that busy work, but not just then increase our capacity for more busy work, which is so easy to do. That's the gravitational pull, is just
to
do
do
more.
Or to add more, even if it's, just to keep adding.
Exactly.
Fill the space. That's Parkinson's law, isn't it? That work will expand to fill the time available. So if you save time, you'll just fill it with more, which is what you and I are seeing. And that's why AI is saving us time, and then we have less time than we had before.
Exactly.
Which is insane. It's insane, right?
How do we solve that problem? We would say through wise AI. And that's using all the time we save and then pressing into what we would call 4 pillars or 4 domains. And really simply, we're using the time we save. We're not immediately redeploying it, but we're holding that space for deep work, deep thought, deep relationships, and deep rest.
So deep work is about, I suppose it was popularised as a term by Cal Newport. It encompasses research-based tools like flow state and concentration, getting into the flow. But it's essentially the type of work where you pause, you have no interruptions, you focus on something in a single tasking way for a sustained period of time, and actually experience that sense where I achieved something that really mattered, where my brain was fully engaged, it feels meaningful, and I used my experience and I ended up with something that actually matters. So it's deep, rich concentration work that matters. Spreadsheets could be deep brainstorming, could be developing strategy, it could be planning, it could be developing a website, but it's not just pushing emails from here to there. We need more and more of it, and we believe that if you can use AI to help you save time on the shallow, simple work and hold that space and direct it to new ways of working, which is not just time, it's mindset and habits, then that's a way of using AI wisely in the workplace.
So deep thought it really undergirds a lot of these other things. It's just undistracted, uninterrupted time for us actually to think. I mean, one of the things you're talking about all the time is that thinking is work. Thinking's not something we do when we have no work on and we get a little bit of time to actually just sit with our own thoughts. Thinking is some of our most important work. So we've got our deep work, we've got our deep thought, deep relationships. It's just actually having the space to be able to talk with someone one-on-one or meet with a group of friends or do something where you're not then tempted to quickly get back to your emails or scroll through your notifications. You don't have to jump out and take a quick call. These sorts of things, that deep human one-on-one connection that just makes our life so meaningful.
Yeah, look, I mean, we humans are connected creatures, right? And it's funny, like the more friends and we know this, the more like friends we have on, I would say Facebook, it's an old technology now, but the less time we're actually spending with real people in real places in real times. And yet it's great to augment your relationships with digital platforms, but to replace them is nuts, right? So I think we don't have enough time for each other anymore in communities to have slow coffees and to have slow walks. And so you and I believe that if AI can be used to enable or redirect some time towards slower relationships in the workplace or in your life as a whole, well, then that would be a good outcome of using AI. And that would be a wise way of using AI.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the last one, so we've covered our deep work, deep thought, deep relationships, and then we move into deep rest. So just sort of unplugging, powering down for a little while, maybe making space to sort of ponder or wonder or pray. It's that inner life stuff that you talk about quite a bit. And so I see a lot of opportunity there for us. And maybe this is one of the best kept secrets about our book. I don't know how you feel about me saying this, Daniel.
No. People have to pay for it, Paul.
Yeah. But here is one of the things. If you sort of pull back the curtain of Wise AI, it is a book about artificial intelligence insofar as we're talking about AI a lot.
Yeah.
But if you sort of pull back the curtain, it's actually a book about living a good life in a world that has AI.
And living a deeply human, rich, meaningful life.
Yeah.
That does meaningful work, but also has rest, connection, and navigates the tension between using tech regularly and well and consistently. Like we definitely teach people how to use AI. You know, there's very practical tools, which is the magic you bring to this book in particular, because you've got so many years of teaching very practical skills on how to use AI well. So there's the practical part, but yeah, really a lot of it, particularly the start of the book, is the paradigm and the shaping of how we think. There was a quote actually. I don't have the quote in the book, but it was along the lines of AI will save you time, but more so it'll amplify what you already do. So if your way of working is to be frantic and busy and to not think and to constantly rush from place to place, well, AI will just extend and amplify that mode of operations. So we need you to pause and think deeply about what type of life you want, and then to allow AI to be a tool that shapes that. And without that part, the technical, how do you prompt, how do you iterate, how do you do all the cyber stuff that we talk about, that doesn't really matter.
Well, exactly right. What really good AI skills, without an understanding of your deeper why, your vision, your values, the sort of life you want to lead, if you don't know those things, but you do have great AI skills, you'll just end up going even faster in the wrong direction. And that's actually not where we want to go, is it? So that's why, in many ways, I wanted to write this book with you, because I've been doing a lot of thinking about artificial intelligence and technology and simple frameworks to help people of all abilities use it well. But you've been thinking about this sort of space and values and structuring your life and deep, true productivity. That's your wheelhouse. So I think it actually takes both flavors and both key ideas, both the technical knowledge and the deeper understanding, if we're actually going to use AI wisely.
Yeah, and look, that's what excited. So you came to me and said, I've got an idea.
Yeah.
I've got an idea. I remember we sat down in a cafe and you said, I've got an idea. What would you think about writing a book on AI? And it's so funny. I've never thought I'd write another book on technology. I always thought my next book would be out of that space, probably in a broader eclectic life space. But I'm not an AI expert, but I am an expert in busy people and how to form habits and how to think deeply about our time. And you're absolutely an expert in AI. And I just got excited. The funny thing is, I'll tell this story. So I went out, we were talking for a long time, we'd had our coffees, and then I thought, I'm actually hungry. I might, do you want some food? And you said, yeah. I thought we'd get chips, right? So I went up, grabbed the menu, and the lady said, it's like half price oyster specials. So I came back, I never buy oysters, but I came back with a dozen oysters, I think, 12 Kilpatricks and like 6 natural. And I was like, do you eat oysters? And you never had them before, had you?
I said, no, I don't.
I'm like, you poor bugger, you're going to eat snot for the first time, and that'll be the memory of this book. But maybe that we could celebrate with oysters.
Well, dude, let me tell you this. So I went back to the same place in Kingston Beach with my wife for a date night, and I told her about oysters. I said, Elby, we got to eat some oysters.
And she wanted chips.
You've ruined oysters for me for the rest of my life, because as soon as I sucked down that first oyster, I thought, where's my book? Where's my pen? I should be writing something. I should be getting something down. So it's like a work food for me now.
Well, excellent. Oh, there you are. Well, hopefully we're successful enough, because oysters are an expensive work food. Oh, dear. All right. Look, let me read a quote from our own book, which is kind of weird, but hey, we like our book. It says, AI will undoubtedly make us faster. The question is whether we'll be any wiser with the time it saves. Now, we like to have a pause on the Spacemakers podcast to help you think about what we're talking about and to reflect. This might be a decent time to pause. Yeah, is there a question you would want our listeners to think about if they just pause for half a minute?
Yeah, so how can I use artificial intelligence in such a way that doesn't just speed me up, but helps me press into the sort of life that I want to live?
All right, well, hopefully that was a good moment to pause. It does make me think, I use AI every day. I find it valuable for writing copy, editing, supporting with ideas, brainstorming, helping with frameworks. Like, I find I'm using it more and more and more, which is useful. At the same time, I do feel sometimes I overuse it, and I do wonder sometimes whether I'm I'm using it in a way that's kind of busy rather than really considered. So why don't we get practical? Because the third section or the third part of our book is about the practices.
Exactly.
And we talk about 10 very specific practices that you've been teaching for years around the world to help people really navigate AI really well. Now, we're not talking to like AI experts who are trying to kind of take it that extra level in a very specific niche field, wanting to build AI agents and do kind of deep coding. That's not who the book's for. It's for everyday busy workers who want to use AI well, build their skills, people who are avoiding it and want to start, or people who are using it every day but just want the confidence to know that they're using it wisely in a smart and sensible way with the right frameworks and the right processes. So I'm going to surprise you with this. Tell me about license to learn.
Sure. So my dad is a teacher. His dad is a teacher. And when I graduated from my Masters of Teaching, my dad came up and he sort of had this cheeky look about him. We write about it in the book. He came up to me and said, "Well done, Paul. You've just got your license to learn." And I was kind of expecting him to say, "I've got my license to teach. I can go and teach." But he said, "No, you got your license to learn how to teach." And that's interesting. The degree was obviously really useful, but what that equipped me to do was get into a classroom and actually then do some real learning in the classroom, practical, tangible. I'm in the environment I'm going to be working in. And that's what we give people with this book as well. These 10 practical principles that we're giving, it's not going to mean you know everything about artificial intelligence, you've graduated and you never have to learn. But what it does mean is you've got the right skills and assumptions behind you so that you can go out and start to learn really, really well.
Yeah. And look, AI is changing so fast, right? By the time we've tried to publish this book fairly quickly because of the nature of this topic, but we've also written in a way that we hope and believe that the principles will still be relevant in 3-5 years, because we're not teaching you how to use, Copilot or how to do particular prompts in like ChatGPT or other kind of platforms. We're talking about how do you engage AI as a large language model tool in a wise way, and the principles will give you, like you said, the license to learn. I really like that. And when you shared that with me, I've reflected on that a lot. I think that's a really deep process, because you need to learn and then continue learning, right? Because as a teacher, you keep learning, right?
Exactly.
But you needed the license to be a teacher who learns.
Yeah, you need a certain requisite amount of knowledge to actually start learning. Like if I put my head under the bonnet of my car and just started trying to figure out what was going on, I would have no clue. I would just have no clue. If my brother did that, he'd have it figured out in 2 minutes, because he's got enough basic knowledge that he can actually then do more learning really quickly. And the things are going to be useful for him, because I don't have my license to learn in being a mechanic. It's not going to work.
Yeah, so we're giving people enough information and the right frameworks so that they have enough then to pick it up from themselves and actually learn from there.
Exactly. And to your point, what's really useful is that these are what we call tool agnostic principles. So it is not a book on how to use ChatGPT or Copilot or Grok specifically, but it will work for all of those things, and it will work for whatever comes next. I think in the book we call the emerging AI Quantum Puddle 9000. It'll work for Quantum Puddle 9000 as well.
You know what? That's going to catch on. The book will be so popular that someone will actually develop Quantum Puddle 9000.
I love it.
That'll be great. That's when we know we've truly made it. Okay, so look, why don't you shoot with one of the broader principles? We can't go into depth with all of them, but why don't you give me one?
Well, one of the really good frameworks for using artificial intelligence, I use it all the time, and I train a lot of teachers and professionals to do it too. It arises out of one of the core fears that we have. I remember I was working with someone recently and they said, "Paul, I think AI is making me dumber. Like, I actually think I'm getting less good at my job. My mental muscles are atrophying and growing weak." And so what we want to do, part of Wise AI, is just not getting worse. It's actually still continuing to improve and grow ourselves. And so if we want to use AI, but we don't want to lose our OI, our organic intelligence, I use this really simple workflow. I call it the plan, do, review. Before I'm actually going to start doing my work, I have a little bit of what I learned from you is called lean back time. Right? So I'm actually leaning back. I know AI is going to help me do things really quickly, so I can give myself a minute just to think. And what am I asking in the plan section? I'm asking, what am I going to do here? What does good look like? And how will I know when I'm done? Right? Just really simple. I'm just priming the pump of my mind to go, this is what I'm doing and this is how I want it to go. And I'm actually articulating some good details there. And this is how I know when it will be done. After that, I can lean forward, I'm firing up my laptop and I'm using AI, but I'm also using Google search, I'm using my emails, I'm using all the tools I have available to myself. And we go through the plan, the do phase, and then lastly, review. So when I'm done, I'm actually going to take another pause for thought. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to think, what went well, what didn't go well, and what might I do differently next time? And what I've found, Daniel, and I've heard this from many people who use the same framework, and cards on the table, it's actually based on one of the most popular cognitive neuroscience frameworks out there. It's big in educational research. What we're actually doing is keeping ourselves in the driver's seat. All right, we're not handing over our thinking. What we are handing over is some of the execution and administration while making sure we're still thinking clearly and articulating what we want. And if you can do that plan, do, review cycle, that will actually make sure your mental muscles are not growing weak. In fact, you're going to still continue to grow and improve while having all the benefits of AI.
It's interesting because I remember you pushed back when Microsoft named their AI Copilot.
I just don't like it, Daniel, because I think as a teacher, right, there are not two steering wheels in my classroom. I'm the pilot. I am the pilot. If you were to draw an org chart of where we should be and where AI should be, it's not a lateral move over to the AI, right? We're not at the same level of hierarchy, but maybe I'm the primary pilot, maybe they're the backup pilot. It's a completely different relationship.
Yeah. So it's what we're trying, and then I think that fits with the plan, do, review cycle, or, I like the OI, AI, OI cycle. It's that same, you start with your organic intelligence to think about and reflect on what you want to achieve, what does excellence look like, and how do you get there. We do this in Spacemakers. It's a very similar idea. Do, get in and kind of get the work done, use the tools to make that happen, and then, go back to your organic intelligence, okay? So it's the same types of ideas, but I do agree with you when I've reflected on it that actually I don't want AI to be a co-pilot. I'm leading my work, I'm leading my team, I'm building our business, I'm directing it. It's an amazing tool that guides me and supports me and helps me do things faster. But if I start to outsource my intelligence to it and let it start to guide me in a true co-pilot way, then I think we lean away from human wisdom. Because in our book, we talk a lot about how these eye-watering superhuman tools are incredibly powerful and they can enable us, but only humans can be wise. Yeah. Because wisdom isn't simply about knowledge and it's not simply about outputs or even speed. It's about recognizing your context. It's about thinking about your emotions and the people in the room. Sometimes wisdom means that you do one thing on one day and then choose the exact opposite, action the next day because of the change in the weather, the context, the emotions, the time, the feelings. So wisdom is a deeply human trait if you practice it, and therefore we need to be using our intelligence before we dive in. And that won't change. Wise AI is always going to need this. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely it is. I mean, we need to make sure that we're holding the steering wheel because also, I mean, just practically, you've got a certain way you like things done. You've got a certain way you want it to look. You've got a workflow that works for you. If we try and outsource all of that, well, AI is a great tool, we often say in the book, but it's a terrible guess what's in my head machine. Yeah. So not only is it just not that good for our organic intelligence, if we try and outsource these things, we're just not going to get good stuff.
Yeah, you get work slop. That's where you get work slop. Exactly. You get work slop if you're not doing the thinking and the reflecting between the AI cycles.
And that's the worst outcome, is if we just crank up the sort of sausage machine and we just charge more and more mediocre stuff out there. That's really not what we're aiming for here. In fact, this book is almost a manifesto against that.
Yeah. A quote from the book is, the most important intelligence in the room is still human. And I really like that. I would love us to look back in a decade and say, hey, we made some tough choices around our rollout of AI. Obviously, we want tough choices to guard us from some of the true poor outcomes of AI. But I would love us to say it actually enabled us to be deeply human, to slow down and to create great work, to think deeply and to have space for the inner life, to connect with people we love, to connect with nature, to have the right tension between being on technology and then off technology to keep pace and make space, as I talk about in my writings. I don't know. For us, that's kind of the vision of AI. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are both coming from a position where we want to see people walk what is admittedly a tension. It's a tension because we need to hold. You remember Sue that we were talking about earlier. We need to hold to some of her skepticism, her caution, but we also need to see Christine and say, actually, she had an optimistic vision and she was willing to move and change. If we can hold that tension and if we can call other people to hold that tension themselves, that just puts us in the best position to actually navigate this in a way that doesn't just chew us up and spit us out and make everything bad, but we can actually save so much time and then just press into those same things. I mean, we've worked around Australia together. Always people are saying, I'm grinding out my work, and what do I really want to do? I want a time for deep work, deep thought, deep relationships and deep rest. And that's what we can do if we navigate this wisely.
Yeah, I love it. Look, tell us about the book as we wrap up. I mean, we are very close to launching.
And you'll be seeing a whole bunch of stuff coming out as we continue to share some of the ideas in the book. We think they're great ideas and we'll continue to share them. But it should be coming out soon. We've actually got a physical launch and there'll be some more details about that pretty soon as well.
Absolutely. So if people want to stay in touch, if they want to pre-order the book, if they want to find out about discounts and actually get some fantastic resources as they come out, if they want to come and actually be part of the physical book launch, well then go to wiseai.au. Sign up and we'll keep you in touch. We would love to introduce you as the first people to our new book. It's going to be great.
It absolutely is. And I'm glad we bought .au because I think .com was like $25,000 USD. So it's pretty good
that wasn't wise.
Not in the budget.
But look, why don't we finish? If a listener could remember just one sentence, idea or concept from this conversation to help them use powerful tools in a deeply human way, what would you share?
Well, what I'd simply say, and this is the thesis of the entire book, I'd say AI is an amazingly powerful technology. It won't make your life better by accident, but if you can use it well, if you can save time in the busy work of everyday life, you will be able to press then into deep work, deep thought, deep relationships and deep rest.
Yeah. And look, Paul, you came on the Spacemakers podcast. I'm so grateful that we got to write a book together. Yeah. It's been an amazing journey and an amazing experience. I am very confident this will be one of the best books I've ever put out because the fusion between your ideas and my ideas, it worked.
It's good stuff.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
We can't wait to get this book out into the world. But thanks for coming on the Spacemakers.
Thanks for having me.
And look, let's really hope that we can help people use AI in a way that brings them deep joy and humanity. Yeah, which is really what this podcast is about. So thank you for listening to the Spacemakers, this bonus episode between season 4 and season 5 of the Spacemakers. And until next time, make space.